Hello, you are listening to the OmniTalk Fast Five, brought to you in partnership with Microsoft, the A&M Consumer and Retail Group, Takeoff, and Sezzle. The OmniTalk Fast Five podcast is the podcast that we hope make you feel a little smarter, but most importantly, a little happier each week too. Today is February 17th. I am your host, Ann Mazinga.
And I am Chris Walton.
And we are here once again to discuss all the top headlines in the world of retail with our good friends from the A&M Consumer and Retail Group, David Brown and Chad Lusk. Welcome to the show, you guys. How's it going today?
Going great. Glad to be back.
Glad to be back, Chad and David. You are here joining us today. This is your second time, right?
This is my second time. Looking forward to it. Had so much fun the first time, and
second time. He's got a nice flow. We were talking about his nice flow to his hair before the show started. Since the last time he was on, Chad, how many times has this been for you?
This is the third time. So
third time.
You know what they say? That's a charm.
They do say that, Ed. Some people do say that. They do say
Maybe that means I'll get it right this time.
Yeah. Well, let's not get too cocky. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here, Chad. Let's not, there's a lot of pressure on you, especially given all the questions you've thrown my way of late. So I'm always excited when you're on the show because I try to up my game, as much as I can for you.
Well, David and Chad, for those people who may not have met you before, let's just give you a quick introduction. Chad, let's start with you first.
Sure. So I'm a senior director with the Consumer and Retail Group. Been with the group here for about a year and a half or so. But I spent time in industry beforehand, multi-time chief strategy officer, chief marketing officer in CPG and retail prior to joining A&M here. And I do a lot of broad scale commercial transformation. So my focus is on consumer-led growth strategy, marketing, new product development, business model innovation, and customer experience redesign.
Excellent.
Nice.
David, tell us
Thank
about
you.
yourself.
I'm a managing director with the group. Been here 2.5 years now. Came over to kind of help lead and start our industry practice. Do most of my work with retailers, a little bit on the CPG side. Really companies looking for multi-year partnerships to transform their business, either bending the cost curve, bending the revenue curve, usually some combination of both, driven by industry inflection, management change, or sometimes external pressure. So
Right.
Well, you guys are extra special. Chris is headed on vacation with Mrs. OmniTalk today, but he wanted to stay. He moved his flight back just so that he could be on this podcast with you guys.
This is my favorite show of the month. We do this every month. We sit down with, people from the A&M Consumer and Retail Group, and I love it because I just get to sit back and take in all their expertise from the consulting that they're doing each and every week. And, just chime in with thoughts where necessary. And it's great. It's my favorite thing that we do every single month.
For sure. Well, are you excited? You're going to Santa Fe tomorrow.
I'm super
excited. You know the way to Santa Fe. You know that song?
No, I don't, because that's absolutely wrong. It's San Jose, not Santa Fe.
That's a big difference.
It is. Yeah. And those are quite far apart from each other.
Oh, you know what I'm thinking about? I think it was that movie, the movie with Dermot Mulroney and where he marries, the blonde woman.
What
my
movie?
God.
What movie does Dermot Mulroney not marry someone?
That's
another
true.
question.
That's true. Yeah, with Julia Roberts, where he's marrying
my best friend's wedding.
Yeah. I think that's the aunts in that sing Santa Fe. So
they might.
I think that's where
I could see how one would confuse that if I was to give you the benefit of the doubt. But we digress, and we're going to keep moving on.
Yes. If we haven't lost the listeners after my singing, let's go into.
That's what we're all about. Yes, you sang this week. I sang last week. Maybe I'll sing again. Maybe Chad and David will sing too. Who knows? All right.
I'm not singing.
I have done it once before.
That's right.
Chad has sung with us. Chad has sung with us, and my ears are still ringing.
An evening, podcast with some cocktails.
Yes.
Right. Cocktails. Cocktails required. All right. Well, let's get to it. In today's Fast Five, we've got news on WH Smith licensing Amazon's Just Walk Out technology at the LaGuardia Airport. Wetzel's Pretzels. Say that 10 times fast.
It makes me laugh every time.
I know. Wetzel's Pretzels in Macy's, DoorDash and McDonald's, GrubHub and 7-Eleven. But first, we take off with Amazon's newly reported ad revenue figures. And you have the honors today.
Yes. All right. Headline number one. So according to Marketing Dive, Amazon has reported its ad revenue for the first time ever last week. And the results are staggering.
They are staggering, actually.
Yes.
Quite staggering. I was staggered.
Of course you were. According to Amazon's earning release, advertising services generated $9.7 billion in revenue in the fourth quarter, which is a 32% year-on-year gain. For the full 2021 year, ad revenue reached a whopping $31.1 billion. Chad, let's go to you first with this. These are huge numbers. Chris was staggered. What are your thoughts?
Staggered, yeah. So many will very reasonably and rightfully so focus on this top line number in the headline. First we get to salivate at getting to hear Amazon actually disaggregate financials overall in their business, and it's the first time we've heard this number. So nearly 10 billion for the quarter. Like, does that seem big? Just to put that in perspective, Facebook did 36, Google did 61 billion in the quarter. So it is a distant third, but for now, right? So to me, the most important number in the story is the plus 32% year over year. And just because Amazon does everything for a reason, right? And the timing of this, like, I think they reveal this number because they have line of sight to this increasing by even higher rates going forward.
Absolutely.
Right. So is part of the growth, like, it must be a return that advertising spend from late 2020 COVID reduced numbers to brands having more confidence spending again in 21. Like, sure, that, Google was up 32% as well. Like, got it. But Facebook was only up 20. And the most interesting part here is that they're calling down 22 pretty significantly.
Right.
Quarter one, they're only saying is going to be up about 3 to 11%. The CFO provided guidance that they're going to take a $10 billion hit in 2022, right? So why does Amazon win and Facebook lose, right? We talked about this a little bit the last time I was on with respect to retail media networks.
Right.
So a couple things going on, right? So social advertising continues to get more expensive. The Apple iOS changes that allow users to opt out of the in-app data collection, it makes it harder to retarget, measure ads, get attribution, whereas Amazon is giving you first-party shopper data. So you think about it, right? You can't get much closer to the consumer point of purchase in a brand's quest to get further down the marketing funnel. Like, as a former CMO myself, that's what you're trying to do, right? Yeah. And where does a typical paid sponsored Facebook ad go as a call to action anyway? If you're not D2C, it goes to Amazon.
Exactly.
Right. So I think there's a major tide turning that CPG brands need to be paying attention to if they haven't already started distorting their marketing media channel mix toward this.
Wow. Yeah, I want to go to you, David, but I just want, before we do, I want to say that was the single best answer, I think, in the history of this show, in my opinion. I love that. I thought you hit all the angles there. It was great. There are a few things I want to add too, and I'm sure Ann does too, but I just want to say that because that was incredible. But David, what do you think? Can you top that?
I don't know if I can top it, but I think the more interesting question is, how big does Amazon want this to be?
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
From a perspective of, sure, they got the eyeballs, they got the traffic, as everything Chet said, it's close to the point of sale. But at some point, does it start to impact their user experience and, ultimately start upsetting marketplace partners or their own category managers because it takes away from the simplicity of shopping on Amazon? And I think that'll be some interesting, conversations up in the halls of Seattle. Is this, an AWS where it becomes their profit generator and selling stuff is just a method to, have more infrastructure and more ad sales? Or, does the shopping experience still matter? So I think we'll see.
Yeah, David, that's what I was looking at too. I mean, what they've generated in ad revenue is already half of the revenue that they're generating for AWS in the last quarter. I mean, they hit almost $18 billion in revenue in Q4 last year. And that's just going to continue to climb. I think, like Chad said, the 32% number is the key statistic here when we're looking at this article. Chris, what do you...
The point I would add, which I think is interesting, and what you and David were just saying particularly, is like, how big does this get? Like, I think it's still going to get a lot bigger because the other factor that's not at play here that we haven't brought up yet is they've got the NFL streaming coming. where that's a whole nother platform for advertising beyond like the type of user experience, David, you were, alluding to there as well.
Absolutely.
And you think about how the substrates and the platforms can continue to evolve in terms of how that experience is consumed and then tied into retail consumption as well. I mean, God, that's incredible when you start thinking about where this could go. And the size of the number is incredible too. Like even alone, you look at the annual volume, that's more than that places them number 17 in the top US retailers just for advertising. So it shows you how strong they are against their retail competition because they have this in play as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bigger than YouTube too. The number is bigger than YouTube. So I talked about where they are in the standing versus Google and Facebook, but Amazon's bigger than YouTube as an ad platform. It's crazy.
Yeah. Wow. That was awesome. That was really great discussion, you guys. I love that. God, can you tell? I'm geeked up. I'm ready for vacation too. Can you tell? All right. Headline number 2, travel retailer WH Smith is making its US store debut. They're the British retailer for those that may not know. And they're doing so atop Amazon's Just Walkout tech platform. Yes, according to Chain Store Age, the British-based retailer has opened a new store in Terminal B of LaGuardia Airport, Anne's favorite airport.
Oh, yay.
The news comes after similar announcements from Cibo Express Gourmet Markets and Hudson, which have also licensed Amazon's tech for similar purposes over the last few years. Chad, back to you on this one again. You set the table so well with question number 1. No pressure. What do you think of this move from WH Smith, as well as from those of its convenience airport brethren?
Yeah, first of all, I feel like I should retire based on the superlative you gave.
Should just go out on top.
Yeah.
John Elway, totally, man.
The George Costanza, I'm out. I'm out, baby. I mean, listen, you said it, Chris. Like, this is not the first time that you guys have covered this story, right? So this is now kind of third in line from an airport convenience delivery standpoint. Now you have WH Smith, which is new to North America, right? But is it really now? Because, the banner name is new, but, when was the last time we really found airport convenience store options differentiated? And now with all these players doing it, and most notably doing it with the same provider, says a couple things to me, right? So number 1 is that contactless checkout free shopping is going to start to become synonymous with convenience. It's going to be hard to disaggregate the two, and at some point could actually become table stakes with those that play the convenience game, at least in this form, right? Which seem to be players who are willing to invest the capital, which then leads me to point number 2. So, this likely or has the ability to extend and expand. Can we start to actually see this in more roadside convenience, meaning gas stations and C-stores, right?
Right.
In a 150,000 C-store US market where most are single site operators, could it actually be more of a differentiator for those that choose to go there, maybe than this kind of airport scene? Initially you think 7-Eleven, Circle K, though that's a franchise model. Is that a hindrance? Or does it emerge with strong regional players like Wawa and Sheetz out east, or Casey's in the Midwest, like those that are company operated? Like, I could totally see that. I think we've all had the experience where convenience is defined by store location, what corner it's on, but not by the quick in and out experience. So that could change that.
Yeah,
and then,
that's interesting. Oh, I was going to say too, Chad, that's an interesting point given the announcement with Grabango and Mapco this week too, this, in the convenience chain down south. So yeah, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, no, what I was just going to say is then bringing this back to Amazon, right? Like, let's assume a portion of this continues to happen and expand. Like, it's interesting, giving Amazon Just Walkout all of this access. Like, I don't think Amazon creates technology to license. Like, they create technology to drive new business models. And boy, we're giving Amazon a lot of data here. So it's just a matter of like, man, what comes next as a result of this?
Well, yeah, that's my question here is like, I think you have to differentiate airport retailers from convenience store retailers. I mean, as an airport retailer, you may be willing to give up the customer, the direct connection with that customer data and information. So is there a higher likelihood that, we'll see the rest of them kind of take this approach where they're licensing Amazon's technology? But what about the C, like, will we see this in other retail categories? Will we see them, I think, Chad, you're right, pushing the checkout free point where they're going to try to figure out how to do checkout free and have that convenience for customer. I don't know that I think that we'll see that any other ones licensing the Amazon technology to do it like the airport retailers. But David, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. To me, it was almost a requirement in the airport. And I came at it from the labor point, right?
Okay.
You know, whether it's the resignation culture that exists today, or just the fact of trying to get deal with wage inflation, which is real for checkout people in airports. That this solves it, right? And I can't tell you how many times I've either stood in SIBA, LaGuardia, or JFK, and I check out myself because they have the self checkouts. But yet there's a person standing there watching me do it, which makes no sense to me, right? So,
So that's interesting. So you're saying there's some endemic issues with the airport operations themselves that are pushing them to go in this direction, say, relative to how quickly we've seen the C stores try to adopt these models with or without Amazon. That's what you're saying, David?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the other interesting point for me too in this, and we've talked about this before, but it seems eerily similar to Amazon licensing its e-commerce platform, right? Back in the early part of 2000s. And to Chad, the point that I'd never thought about too is you said like airport convenience is very non-differentiated. Well, if Amazon learns that this game can work, like they're branded, they're pretty differentiated, that suddenly gives them a foothold into this space in theory, in concept, which is an angle I hadn't thought about before in terms of that kind of e-commerce analogy that we saw in the past. But I don't know, the point David's bringing up too, maybe they just continue to play that way, or they franchise out their operations and their brand to do it as well. I don't know. I don't know how Amazon plays this, but it doesn't make sense to me that all these guys are jumping into the pool with Amazon on this.
Oh, I think it's easy. I mean, it makes sense. The airport angle makes sense to me.
So you're saying they just got this hard situation they got to figure out. And so they're going to go with Amazon because it's proven. That's what you're saying, David, essentially.
Simple, plug and play.
You can argue it's the lazy answer, but it is,
Yeah.
You gotta go. Well, you gotta go, right?
Well, laziness sometimes drives a lot of decision-making in life, probably more so than we actually ever admit, especially in business too.
Okay. Well, we're going to head on to headline number 3 that everybody's been waiting for. And I just can't help but smile when I say Wetzel's Pretzels, you guys, they're coming to Macy's.
Woohoo!
According to Restaurant News, Wetzel's Pretzels, the 350 unit pretzel chain with locations mostly in California and Arizona, has opened a kiosk inside the Macy's located at the South Coast Plaza Mall in Costa Mesa, California, with the intent of expanding its retail footprint soon to other shopping experiences like Lowe's and Home Depot. Shout out to listener Michael Abada for requesting that we talk about this on today's show. Thank you, Michael. David, we're going to go to you first. What are your thoughts on Wetzel's? Will we see more or less of this in the future? And should we?
More of it, and absolutely we should.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's the evolution of shopping, right? And the sense that I think it has less to do with Macy's and more to do with kind of how shopping is changing.
Yeah.
I think the days are gone when you go spend 3, 4, or 5 hours in a mall and you required a meal. So there was a food court that was built around that, right? This is all now about, convenience. And we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but the customer expectation of quick and convenient is changing. So if I can go, and department stores have evolved some of the slowest in that, right? In the sense that they don't do a lot of, buy online, pick up in store. They're finally getting there, and that type of thing. So the food options along with that has to change, right? It's not quite as, interesting as some of kind of the ghost kitchens and things like that, where they deliver right to the store, but at least it's a step in the right direction. I can go in to Macy's or wherever, be purposeful, pick up my pretzel, or at least something that enables me to keep going. And I think it's the way for the future, or at least it should be.
Okay, David, are you a pretzel guy though? Is that a destination for you when you go to the mall? What are your thoughts on the pretzels? Just
I am generally not a pretzel guy. I'd rather see something maybe a little bit healthier, but I will say this, that every once in a while, it's hard to beat a good pretzel.
It is salted with cheese every time. Totally gets me every time.
But you have to wait for the ones that come just out of the oven.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the key.
For sure. Nice little butter on them too. But okay, so hold on. So I want to piece apart what you said. So you're saying we're gonna see more of it, which that I can get behind. And then you think it's a good idea too, right? Like you think it's a good idea for Macy's to be doing this type of thing, right? Am I hearing you right, David?
Yeah, and the Macy's thing to me is almost irrelevant. I do think that department stores in general are doing anything categorically to drive foot traffic, right? Because it's like, there's some systemic structural challenges for them. And, this is one way to make it a little bit more convenient.
Yeah.
I think we all get wrapped around the axle of what Macy's is doing sometimes. And I think this is more of a category issue.
Yeah, this is fascinating because I feel like there's a lot of dynamics at play here. And number one, I just want to single out that I think this story particularly is the perfect like symbol for where Macy's finds itself, because strategically it's definitely in a twist. See what I did there, Ann? But the thing about it for me is like, in essence, what we're essentially saying, if I kind of play back what you said, David, like you're essentially going to see department stores become more like Target and Walmart, like at the end of the day, like one-stop shops. And my thing is, like, while that all makes sense in principle, like the department store, by putting in pretzel stands or whatever the hell else you want to put in there, can offer that convenience to the customer. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think we have to remember too, and this may be different when you start talking department stores, Macy's versus Kohl's, but let's just take like the standard department store category and where they are, they're alongside a mall.
Yeah.
And so like, is that convenience element of having a Wetzel's Pretzels in a Macy's really that convenient and that big of a draw to get you into Macy's when you have the food court and all the evolutions of ghost kitchens happening alongside that? And you can have those things delivered anywhere you want while you shop.
Yes.
Like it seems like it's actually, to me, like a very counterproductive way to go about trying to create more convenience in the department stores. But Ann, what do you think?
Not being prepared next to you. Like that's the thing that nobody's talking about here. If you look at the kiosk, it's right next to like coats and shoes and all the stuff. Who wants to buy a winter jacket that smells like pretzels that have been cooking for 4 hours? Not me.
That's a good point.
So I think that this is I agree with David. This is a great move for Wetzel's. They're getting to test smaller formats in unexpected places. Yes. They're likely getting a better deal on rent inside Macy's than they are in the malls.
Yeah.
But they are not a trip driver to Macy's. I do not agree with that. I think it cheapens the Macy's brand. I don't think that having that in that I think the department stores are still a higher end of like, you expect this higher end kind of experience inside those places, and to have this inside there just feels bad in my opinion. That is not the case for Lowe's and Home Depots. I think that makes sense to be in a Lowe's and Home Depots where the products around you, I mean, they already have hot dog carts for God's sakes. Like it doesn't.
And they're locationally destinations on their own.
Right.
So that's the point.
There's nothing else in the Lowe's and Home Depot that you can do for this. But
Chad, what do you think? And then we'll go back to David for final word.
Yeah. And we're kind of having two different conversations here, right? Is like, what is required to save the department store?
Right.
Which is where you guys are, and I could tell when you even started this that's where you're going to go, right?
Our show so well.
Macy's is your favorite punching bag, right?
That's right.
But then there's the other side, which I completely agree with David in terms of the evolution of how shopping and eating are working together, right?
Yeah.
Where, more recent concepts are born out of the insight that shopping is a now faster on the go, type experience, and the food occasion needs to go along with it. So take that as a definitive yes. And whether it's Wetzel's Pretzels, whether it's Macy's, the shopping experience needs to tie to the eating experience, right? And where that's happening, ghost kitchens and otherwise, makes all the sense in the world, right? And I will say, like, the story lost me a little bit in the end, where the company starts talking about Wetzel's, that is, being more of a destination instead of a grab and go, because that disrupts the whole mental model that I just described and David talked about, right? Where like, okay, so the benefit is the pop up quick on the stream, like as people are shopping, quick refuel your body in the way that you're fueling from a good standpoint. But now when you're trying to couple destination into that and doing it in a department store that hasn't evolved to that more on the go, that's where you get the mismatch, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's where the idea that David and I are supporting, with the dissonance in your head in terms of what that means for Wendy's and Pretzels, that's where it comes to a head.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that,
this is great.
The point where I was going with is, you think about like malls in a sense where like a Macy's or any of the others, JCPenney's is attached to a larger building. Mm-hmm. I think they have to become more like a Lowe's or a Home Depot, where you walk in the Macy's store, you actually never walk in the rest of the mall. Mm-hmm. And then you walk out. And so it is that, one-stop shop, and that's part of their survival plan. Right?
Yeah, which is why they've been going after toys too, right? Like they've,
exactly
same kind of idea. I think the question I would have is, as the consumer, is that what we ultimately, that's the last question, we'll move on, but like, is that what we actually want? Do I just, if I'm going to the mall where the Macy's is located, do I just want to go to the Macy's? And am I okay with that? I don't know the answer to that, but I think it's fun to think about. So, all right, I'm sure we'll cover it again on future shows.
Mall traffic tells you the answer to that. But
nobody wants to go to the mall in general, right? But all right.
Credit to Michael for bringing up that question. That was a good one. I didn't expect as much debate there.
Yeah, no, me either. I thought that was kind of like a throwaway kind of story here, kind of a fun one, but actually it gets at a lot of stuff, which is why we put it in. All right. Headline number 4, DoorDash is planning to bump up the fees it's charging to McDonald's if McDonald's keeps its drivers waiting too long. According to the Wall Street Journal this week, DoorDash agreed to lower its base commission rates for McDonald's U.S. restaurants in exchange for the ability to charge higher commissions to McDonald's restaurants for orders that keep delivery drivers waiting, and for each McDonald's store to cover the cost of refunds caused by a restaurant's mistakes, like say putting a Big Mac in a bag when it should have been a quarter pounder, which coincidentally is a mistake that should never be made, because the Big Mac is a far superior sandwich to the quarter pounder every day of the week and twice on Sundays, except during Lent. And then the award goes to the fillet of fish. But Chad, I digress.
Was that a quote from, I just want to clarify here, was that a quote from the Wall Street Journal, or is that a Chris Walton special that you threw in there?
No, that's actually a Walton family axiom.
Oh, it's on the crest?
Those are words to live by. Yes, fillet of fish during Lent, Big Macs over quarter pounders every day. All right, but Chad, seriously now, what do you make of this announcement? It appears DoorDash, at least the way the Wall Street Journal was positioning this piece, DoorDash was appearing to flex some of its muscle here in these negotiations with what is quite honestly one of the bigger retailers around.
Yeah, and I love that you phrase it that way, because if Wetzel's Pretzels got some debate, like I want some good one here. Like, this is such a good headline, guys. Like, this is
sweet.
Feels like a great example of why you do what you do, the decisions we help clients make. Like, it's great to talk about this one. So I agree. Like, when I first read this, in terms of how it's positioning, I wanted to criticize DoorDash out of the gates, right? Instituting service delay penalties on its partners at a time of intense labor shortages just seemed punitive, petty, and too opportunistic, right?
Okay.
But as I read it, I saw a couple things. So first, base commission rates. So what McDonald's is paying to DoorDash on orders comes down in the base case as much as like 390 basis points based on the article. And I said come down, but I think the article actually uses past tense. So I don't know if that's been implemented already, that they've lowered it. Maybe I'm reading too much into that, but it's important because the other point is that this wait time commission penalty doesn't start until 2023. So there's a pretty decent lead time for labor shortages to settle in a lot of cases, in which many of our clients who are dealing with are confident in predicting to us that they'll have more stability by then. So with that in mind, I say go for it, DoorDash. I mean, what you're fundamentally doing here is saying it's a kind of pay for performance model. Like, I don't know who wins and loses economically in the short term based on service levels today, but longer term, like, I like this because incentives become very much aligned between McDonald's and DoorDash, where poor service equals higher costs, better service equals lower cost, better satisfaction, and repeat use. So when you put all that together, I'm on board, but I'm interested to hear what you guys think.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think my take is the same. I mean, I think when you look at when you just look at basically the levers that these companies have to pull in order to make this delivery service profitable, right? You've got the margins on the products, which in this case is, a proxy for the commission rates. You've got the advertising revenue that they're collecting, which is happening exogenous or outside of this story. And then you've got the cost of actually doing the deliveries, servicing the customer, which is a function of the charges that they're asking McDonald's to pay. And I think so like at the end of the day, those are the levers we're talking about for these things to work. And this shows you that, DoorDash is saying, you know what, we've got to get some help on this side of things to continue to make this work. And they're pushing McDonald's to make that happen. Granted, with probably some big concessions too. That's why for me, I was like, who's really got the leverage here or not? Because it's hard to know that without getting into the deep details of the contracts. But, it's showing you that the conversations are happening. And I like how you frame that too, Chad. Like, it seems aligned from an incentive perspective. You operate well, you're going to get the benefits. You don't, the benefits go, more so to DoorDash in that situation. But I don't know, Ann, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with what Chad's saying, but there's also a labor shortage issue on the side of DoorDash too. I mean, it's not just McDonald's who's facing these, and time is money. So there's got to be some way to compensate the DoorDash drivers as well for inefficiencies. And McDonald's, I think, is certainly much better positioned to look into things like automation and things, especially with what you're saying, Chad, if they have a year runway to kind of get that in place to ensure more consistency and accuracy, because this delivery option is not going away. They are going to have to invest there. So I think it makes sense. I actually would love to see the McDonald's brothers come back. Remember in the movie that they were like role playing how to automate the fast food stores in general, where they're like, just, this is how you automate exactly how much ketchup you put on, exactly
the Ray Kroc with Michael Keaton.
Yes.
That's a great movie. By the way.
It is.
What the hell's that movie called? I can't remember.
Founder.
Yeah. Right.
But just seeing them be like, all right, we're back from the dead. We're going to figure out how to do automation here. Yeah. How are we going to make these orders?
Well, just today, White Castle announced they're using Flippy the robot in Chad's neck of the woods, Chicago. So it could be coming. All right, David, what do you think? Final word on this one.
Yeah, I mean, to me, you talked about leverage. I think what's clear is that the customer has the leverage, right? When you end up waiting 15, 20 extra minutes for, a cold hamburger or cold French fries. Well, it's like, you're not going to eat them. Like, who cares? Like, at that point in time. So ultimately then, it's a refund. It's a pain in the neck for DoorDash. It's, pain in the neck for McDonald's. So this was DoorDash's lever to, keep the customer profits up. So.
And you're right. They're probably blaming DoorDash in that situation too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Tips are impacted.
Right? Nobody thinks that like, okay, it was late, that I'll tie it back to, the person making the burger. Right.
Yes. A giant QSR chain. Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
All right, let's go to headline number 5. We're going to talk about another instant delivery provider here. GrubHub is partnering with 7-Eleven for a new convenience item delivery service dubbed GrubHub Goods. According to Yahoo Finance, GrubHub is teaming up with 7-Eleven to offer on-demand convenience delivery through the GrubHub app. They did a successful pilot in Manhattan, and GrubHub Goods will launch nationwide on February 15th, just launched, offering delivery to more than 3,000 locations in the U.S. To celebrate the launch.
Yeah, this is crazy.
Like many other instant delivery providers we've seen, give some pretty impressive discounts. GrubHub is offering customers 50% off of orders $15 or more. David, why is 7-Eleven going at it this way?
Yeah, so I think there's two things here, right? I think from the GrubHub angle, like, could you be later to the party, right? 7-Eleven party partners with Postmates, Instacart, DoorDash, et cetera. So, 7-Eleven's got more doors than anybody, so they kind of had to do it, but they feels just very late and a little bit desperate from the GrubHub side. Mm-hmm. I think for 7-Eleven, it's much more interesting, right?
Yeah,
they have their own delivery service, 7-Eleven Now, which they have to partner with people as you get it up and running. But I think that what they're facing is, if you look at some of the startups, particularly on college campuses, like, like a GoPuff or a Snagit or something like that are, Snagit in particular is kind of impressive because they're doing 10-minute deliveries, guaranteed. Whereas some of the others are 30 minutes. And, when you want, like, okay, that bottle of water, or I got a hangover and I need aspirin, or, whatever. And you can take that in a lot of different requirements in terms of what you might need in 10 minutes. To me, it's 7-Eleven trying to figure out how I get that customer promise down to, its lowest common number. That's going to make sense. And it feels a little bit like a bridge solution to me until they, kind of buy one of these startups and just implement it that way. They're going with the big players until they can figure out their long-term solution.
So do you think that's interesting? So do you think this is like kind of like a little bit of an experiment, wait and see approach to see how much demand's even really out there for this quick delivery thing too? Because you're right, it is in stark contrast to the 7-Eleven 7 Now Gold Pass that they announced was 3 weeks ago, right? Which was 30-minute delivery. Like you're doing that and then you're doing this as well. It seems weird. Like I don't understand why you would do that. So your point is that they're kind of just surveying the landscape here to see what this is all about.
I think so. I mean, why not sign? You're already on the platform with everybody else, right? So adding GrubHub to it is you have to, right? It's it's just another, it's another door for them.
And we don't know, GrubHub could be servicing 7 Now too, like quite possibly, right? Like this is just something that they're just doing together anyway, right? Okay.
Chad, what do you think? Weigh in here.
Yeah, so as a former C-store operator in one of those businesses, it's first of all, it's great to see 2 convenience-oriented headlines in the stories this week. But I mean, I agree with you guys. Like this one left me flat. Like I expected to see something within the story that was new and appealing. I mean, it just seems like every week there's some sort of one-upsmanship in the world of ultra-fast delivery. Yeah, These guys are 30. These guys are 15 minutes. These guys are 10. Blink and it's there. These guys are on bikes. These guys are on hoverboards. These guys have micro fulfillment centers. These guys have kiosks. And it was just okay. So I agree with David around the provocative thought then of okay, well, where is 7-Eleven going, right? And so, and where should they go? Because where we see a lot of activity happening within this is in densely populated urban areas. It seems like if 7-Eleven can figure out the suburban landscape, and I don't think it's through this, it's through a next move. That could be some next level stuff, right? Yeah. And so hopefully this is an appetizer into something bigger, kind of get the lay of the land and then figure out the suburban play where others have not been able to do, because that seems like the biggest white space.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think this is a great deal for GrubHub. If this works for them and for 7-Eleven, GrubHub suddenly has 9,500 plus dark stores in the US alone that they can be pulling from with 7-Eleven. Some of those may be closer to the suburbs, like you're saying, Chad, but it really does make them a stronger contender against the Uber Eats, the DoorDash's, who are already running this model, which is great for customers because I get dinner and convenience items with one membership. So, I mean, that's where the customers are really winning here because they now have access to all of these items and more choice than, just the few that are out there that are able to do ready to eat food and convenience items. And I think 7-Eleven gets to test this, they get to see, like you were saying, David, they get to see, whether or not this is the right model, or if they're losing too much of that one-to-one connection with the customer. But
that's a good point, Ann. It's a defense move against DoorDash with Dash Mart and the Dash. What's the add-on Dash? What's that thing called where you can add on the convenience items to your food order as well. So yeah, that's a great point. I hadn't thought about that in terms of the connection with GrubHub. All right, Ann, should we move on to the lightning round? This is quite possibly going to be the most exciting lightning round of all time. Not to build it up, but I think you're going to agree when you listen to it.
All right. Well, speaking of building, Chad, we're going to you first. Build-A-Bear released their After Dark teddy bears in time for Valentine's Day last week. Which of the After Dark bear series would you be more likely to give your significant other? Cozy as Fluff Bear or Rose over Roses Bear? Inquiring listeners want to know.
Oh God. I think in perhaps that is one of the best brand names I've ever heard. I have to go with cozy as fluff, just as pure brand marketing.
Curl up alongside a fire with cozy as fluff.
You have to. And that story is real. That's the thing. That is a real headline. That's something Build-A-Bear really did. They came out with
you got 18 plus to enter the site.
Yes, you do. You
I'm
have
not
to be
kidding.
18 plus to enter that site. Yes. All right, David. Ace Hardware introduced a new infrastructure platform to support its do-it-for-me handyman services this week. What is one task around the home that you 100% would need to call in a handyman for help?
Cleaning up after my dog.
Oh,
good one. The pooper scooper. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
I love that.
I'm right there with you.
I love that it's called "Do It For Me." I wonder.
There
was a lot of when you looked at the headline, there was a lot of accidental changes to that "Do It For Me" headline. If you look closely at the article, they still have not yet been fixed.
Yeah. I take it to the natural outcome.
Yes, exactly. All right, Chad. Disney announced this week that they're opening Catino, a Disney branded residential community with access to curated experiences from wellness to cooking classes. Are you and the family ready to buy your Disney Catino home? And if not, is there a brand you might consider doing that with?
I think my family would buy into it, because I've married into a somewhat crazy Disney family.
Have you?
And so let's say they can buy and I'll visit.
Okay. So this is like a second home situation. This is like the cabin at Disneyland.
So I got to ask a follow-up question. Are you one of those families where like the annual pilgrimage to Disneyland is like a required thing? Like, are you doing it every year?
That's how my wife grew up, and they
assume vacation.
They would actually do it where they might go in like January and November, December to buy the annual pass and go twice in a year.
Oh wow!
Wow, that is a different breed. I'm just gonna put it there. There are a lot of people like that though. It's kind of crazy, but
Chris,
Disney is one of the only brands that could do that. I think. I don't know that there are many other brands out there, which is why we asked the question.
Yeah, right. We've talked about Lululemon before.
It's like the natural extension of cruise people.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Right. It is. Yeah, it is. It's kind of like that. All right, David, let's bring this home. In honor of WH Smith debuting its first U.S. store in LaGuardia this week, what is one item that you will be just walking out with the next time you have the horrendous misfortune of having to fly through the LaGuardia airport?
Yeah, well, since I have to, not at LaGuardia today, but I do have to fly this afternoon. So I would probably pick up some kind of cheap Valentine's gift, since I wasn't home on Monday, and complete my epic failure this week. So maybe it's a candy bar for my wife. So.
You can get a cozy as fluff.
Cozy as fluff.
Exactly. If they had the teddy bear, I could save myself. But since they don't have the teddy bear,
oh my God, David,
I'm just going to complete my failure.
Or the Do It For Me handyman. Everything works this week.
Do It For Me handyman, cozy as fluff, rose over roses.
All the stories are tied together.
I know, it's amazing.
All right. That was a great show. Really great insight today. So good having you guys on. Happy birthday today to Denise Richards, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and the one actor I always remember from his My Secret Identity days, Jerry O'Connell.
Ooh, I used to have the biggest crush on Jerry.
Did you really? I can't stand Jerry O'Connell. Really? Oh God, it kind of creeped me out just even bringing him up. All right, and remember, if you can only read or listen to one retail blog in the business, make it Omni Talk. Our Fast Five podcast is the quickest, fastest rundown of all the week's top news, and our twice weekly newsletter tells you the top 5 things you need to know each day, and also features special content exclusive to us and just for you. And we try really, really hard to make it fit all within the preview pane of your inbox. You can sign up today at www.omnitalk.blog. Thanks as always for listening in. Please remember to like and leave us a review wherever you happen to listen to your podcast or on YouTube. David, Chad, thanks for being with us today. Hey, if people are listening, want to get in touch with you guys, learn more about what you guys do at the A&M Consumer and Retail Group, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, thanks, guys. It was a blast today. So you can find out more about A&M CRG at our website, Alvarez and Marsal-CRG.com. And then find me individually, Chad Lusk, Lusk on LinkedIn, or can email directly at clusk, so Klusk, at alvarezandmarsal.com.
A fitting end to what was a great podcast. All right, awesome. Well, on behalf of Chad, David, and myself, to all our loyal listeners out there, thanks for sticking with us today. And as always, be careful out there.
The OmniTalk Fast 5 is a Microsoft-sponsored podcast. Microsoft Cloud for Retail connects your customers, your people, and your data across the shopper journey, delivering personalized experiences and operational excellence. And is also brought to you in association with the A&M Consumer and Retail Group. The A&M Consumer and Retail Group is a management consulting firm that tackles the most complex challenges and advances its clients, people, and communities towards their maximum potential. CRG brings the experience, tools, and operator-like pragmatism to help retailers and consumer products companies stay on the right side of disruption. And Takeoff. Takeoff is transforming grocery by empowering grocers to thrive online. The key is micro-fulfillment, small robotic fulfillment centers that can be leveraged at a hyper-local scale. Takeoff also offers a robust software suite so grocers can seamlessly integrate the robotic solution into their existing businesses. To learn more, visit takeoff.com. And finally, Sezzle. Sezzle is an innovative buy now, pay later solution that allows shoppers to split purchases into 4 interest-free payments over 6 weeks. To learn more, visit Sezzle.com.